So I'm going to tell you guys my life story and a few photos, and then give you just some takeaways. My story starts in 1981. My slide ninjas are going to help me. 1981, that is me right there, sporting the feathered hairstyle with the Aquanet hairspray. And I was living on 254 South College Drive, Bowling Green, Ohio, not Bridgeport. And sat down, wrote a letter, and it was a suicide letter at 8 years old. I wrote the letter, and I mailed it to my grandparents because I wanted to die. And they turned that letter over to my parents, who called the local church, i.e. the Experience, and somebody from the Experience church, which was for me, Plain Congregational Church, came over to our home and met with me as an 8-year-old. 8 years old. Prayed with me, and we kind of just moved on from that incident. Fast forward to 1988. I think we have a horrific picture of me again. Oh, okay, there we go. This is where I'm 14. But I mean, come on, yo. Okay, I did have the shoulder pads and the pinstripes going on, so give me some credit, okay? Because I know y'all, yeah. Weren't you wearing that too? You were, see? You're laughing, but on the inside, you have a soft tear that we don't wear those anymore. At this age, we moved. I had to go to a new school. I didn't have any friends. I couldn't handle it. So I wrote a 6-page suicide letter, put it on the kitchen counter, went to put my plan in motion to take my life at 14 when the doorbell rang. It was somebody that needed to come into the home to spray for bugs. If I'm lying, I'm dying. And it threw off my plan that day. I couldn't do what I wanted to do with somebody there. You know, when we take our lives, we do it in private. And he had made it public by just his presence being in our home. Or God just didn't want me to die that day. Fast forward to 1995, I believe here I look even worse. Yes, okay. I don't know what this phase was. I'm not even gonna try to act like it was cool. There's way too much sun in my hair. I don't look good in a cowboy hat. And I definitely do not need to be wearing white as my skin is. Nonetheless, 1995, was dating a guy. It was extremely dysfunctional. I couldn't handle it. Didn't write a note this time, took a bottle of pills, tried to take my life, was taken to the emergency room where they were able to do what they needed to do to keep me going. Next picture is 2000, 22 years ago. And that is my husband, 22 years ago. He doesn't look like that now. But he's a Cuban. Any Cubans here, by the way? Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't know what a Cuban was. I mean, I'm from Ohio. I went to Florida. I'm like, what's a Cuban? Anyway, he married me, and this was on our 1-year wedding anniversary in 2000. And I feel your judgment. I know you're glaring at me saying, oh, pastors at the gambling tables. Well, I will have you know that this Baptist pastor was there with his wife to lay hands on the iniquity of that sinful, sinful table and cast demons out of it. Duh. But a few months after this 1-year anniversary, I would go to a parking lot, drink a bunch of alcohol, and proceed to try to take my life in my car. And Raul, my husband, showed up, and he was unable to stop me. When you become psychotic, unfortunately, you can become unusually strong. And I had become unusually strong. I liken it to a rabid animal. So they were unable to subdue me, the first responders and my husband, which forced them to have to tranquilize me and knock me out so that they could get me to stop killing myself and get me to the hospital. And they took me there, and they treated my injuries. And par for the course for somebody like myself, who thinks she's always the funniest person in the room, which I usually am, truth be told. You know, I'm sitting there, I have blood on me, I have vomit on me, some of my clothes have been ripped because they had to try to stop the bleeding and all this stuff, and hot mess, and I just start cracking jokes, awkward jokes, like, I can't even kill myself right. And like, no one's laughing, you know, it's just really awkward. But I just thought I was gonna go home that day, another failed suicide, right? But that's when the state of Florida stepped in, and they're like, not so fast, killer. You are a threat to yourself, and you're a threat to society. And by law, we can lock you up in a psych ward for 72 hours. And that's what we're gonna do right now. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like a pastor's wife. I mean, not even just a pastor's wife. I'm like that Baptist pastor's wife. Like Puritan, Amish, wholesome. There's no way you can lock that up. Surely there's a concession for spiritual people when it comes to committing suicide in a public place, and there's not. Doesn't matter who you are. If you are going to try to take your life, the state's going to step in, and they should. So they took me to a psych ward and put me in a room by myself. Meanwhile, still covered in vomit and blood and some of my clothing missing. They didn't care. It was very deplorable 22 years ago. I will say that I felt like they treated me like an animal. They put me in isolation because I was behaving so violently. And they've come a long way. You know, I do a lot of visits to psychiatric hospitals, and we now dignify all of us that are there as humans, not as animals. And I thank God for that. I thank God for that. If you and me are ever at a place like that and we want to get better, we need to be treated like the humans God made us to be. And I just lied there that night, and I had a choice because they didn't let me have anything. I couldn't even have a sheet to cover up, like nothing, lest I use that to kill myself again. So it was nothing. It was a cell with a bed. That's it. And I was like, well, I can talk to my demons, or I can try to talk to God. And, I was like, well, if I'm going to talk to you, God, I'm going to let you know how I feel. I'm pretty ticked off because I want to die. And somehow you keep intervening and making me live. And I'm supposed to be this goody two-pastor's wife. I don't want to be even in life. And I kind of just let him be honest. And I share that because I love Jesus Christ with all my heart. He's my best friend in the whole wide world. But he didn't peace out because I was mad at him. If anything, he pressed in because I'm still here. So if you're upset with God, don't be like, I can't because he might get mad at me. No, I think God would be more mad at us if we didn't tell him we were mad at him because they were being dishonest. Just be real with him. And so I ended up kind of making a deal with God that night, and I was like, whatever, fine, you win. But if you get me out of this place, this deplorable place, I'll make a deal with you, and I'll help people not end up here. And for 22 years, God and I have both held up to our end of the deal. So after that nightmare, I got very serious about what is obviously my biggest weakness. We all battle something, okay? And at this time, I would like each of you to stand up and identify publicly what it is that you battle. Just kidding. Totally kidding. Can you imagine if a church did that? If a church ever does that to you, leave. And by the way, the experience will never do that to you, so stay. Where was I at? Battle. What was I saying? And mine is suicide. We all battle something. I battle suicide. And so I have to treat that like any other battle of the body, mind, or soul. And I take it very seriously. And so I kind of have a protocol or a regimen that I follow to stay alive. And I read my Bible, I take my medicine, I see my psychologist, I go to church, I go to church, I go to church, I go to church, I go to church. You and me have it rough all week. And our lives are tanks that the week that we have runs us empty. And we wander all of our lives wondering where we can get filled up again. Right here. You are where you need to be to get filled up again. Yay, you. Yay, you. And I know my boundaries, and I exercise, and I know my worth. So that's kind of my regimen. But then 2020 rolled in. Okay, show of hands. Who would say that was their favorite year ever? Okay, worst year ever. Now, this is a photo of what my family and I looked like before I found out I had to homeschool them. Aw, what a sweet family. You will never see a picture of what I look like with them at the end of 2020. I can't even put that picture out in public. Are you kidding? Homeschool my kids. I swear my kids got stupider that year. There was just no hope for them. So good luck, DJ and Andy. But 2020 was very difficult because while the pandemic was going on and it was horrible, and the COVID and the fear that that caused, in the forefront of my life, I wasn't dealing with the medical side of the pandemic. I was dealing with the mental side of the pandemic. A lot of people were inundating me with DMs and texts and emails of their mental and addiction struggle. And I was trying to help people as much as I could. This is 1 week's worth of DMs, just in 1 week during 2020. Heather, I found my husband hanging in the garage. Heather, my girlfriend contemplated suicide. I need help. Heather, a girl attempted suicide in our church's bathroom. Heather, I need crisis intervention. My son's on a 10-day binge. Heather, my coworker's wife died by an overdose, leaving 4 kids. Heather, my son's using cocaine with alcohol. Can I get him admitted without getting him arrested? Heather, can you pray for our 13-year-old in the hospital for a suicide attempt? Heather, my mom died of COVID, and today my sister killed herself. And while this was happening in the foreground of my life, where I was trying to help people as much as I could, in the background of my life, my worst nightmare became my reality. When you struggle with wanting to take your life, experts and the Bible will tell you public enemy number 1 is isolation. Because by and large, we don't take our lives in public. We do it when we're alone. And so that's not a good environment for someone like myself. Yet the government was mandating it. This was another test for my relationship with God. Because I was like, I love you with all of my heart. I love the Lord. I love Jesus. And he knows I can't be isolated because of what I will do. And he's allowing the government to shut us down and isolate us. Is this some kind of joke? And I just had to have that conversation with God again and be real, because I was frustrated. But in the spring of 2020, my family went out of town, which left me home alone. And that was a mistake. And I own it. I should not have done that. I should not have been home alone. But as I was home alone, I looked at my iPhone and I saw for the foreseeable future, I had nowhere to go, nothing to do, nowhere to be, and the worst was no one needed me. And that started to mess with my head. So I sat down on the kitchen floor and started to ruminate about the things that I normally do when I feel like I want to get out of here. And the enemy moved in quick. And the whole God enemy thing, I know that can all sound hokey pokey, but my story is not hokey pokey. I have lived this for 41 years, and I can tell you from my experience, there is a God who saves and an enemy who kills, and God is winning. God is winning. So the enemy, par for the course, knew I've got her now. And he started to impress this supposition in my mind that I had never entertained before, which is very important for us to note. All the other things the enemy had tried to use to get me to kill myself hadn't worked. Why would he try them again? So he started to spin this new supposition in my head that I had never thought of before. Heather, have you ever thought of how embarrassing it is to be your husband? You're married to this dignified Cuban MBA from UM executive pastor, and you're crazy. Now, he would be very sad, of course, if you died today, but he would grieve, he would move on, and he would be able to, eventually down the road, marry somebody else that would just be a little more normal and kind of get some of his time back. Sounded true. And the enemy didn't stop there. Then it got worse. Have you ever thought about what it's like to have you as a mom? You embarrassing, crazy woman that DJ and Andy have to call mom at high school. That sealed the deal. Sealed the deal. I powered off my phone and I went into the garage and I started to act on what I thought I was going to do. And I share those things because they're lies. And I want you guys to know that. that if you are being tempted to take your life, whatever reason is tempting you is not a truth. It is a lie. The truth sets you free. The lie binds you or kills you. So I had to, in that moment, I knew God couldn't get through to my mind. So I started to just feel an impression in my gut. My mind was made up. I'm dying today. But in my gut, I started to get this impression of, practice what you preach, girl. You've been going around 20 years now telling people what to do in this exact urgent, critical situation. And if you don't do it, you don't die with a legacy, you die as a hypocrite. You okay with that? And it just was in my gut. This thing was in my gut. I can't explain it. It wasn't in my mind. And I was like, well, the one thing I do tell everybody to do, whether it's one homeless heroin addict, like my little brother Chris, or a room full of awesomeness like you guys, the message is the same. When you're in that kind of a situation, 2 words, call someone. Call someone. Call someone, call someone, call someone, call someone, call someone. It's not an acronym. It's not a long oratory. It's not some 9-page thesis. 2 words. If you want to give up, call someone. Because I know whoever you call is not going to say, do it. Whether you call 988, 911, the church, a counselor, a guidance counselor at school, your boss, your friend, your family member, you need to call somebody. Promise me you'll call somebody. So knowing that I needed to call somebody, I got out of the garage, I powered up my phone, and I called a crisis hotline for pastors. And I don't know if y'all have read the Bible, but God can do some pretty miraculous things. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't been hanging out in the belly of a fish lately, erped up on the beach. Haven't exactly been able to turn wine into water yet. Haven't been able to take 5 loaves, 4 breads, and feed 5,000 people. I mean, he does some pretty miraculous things. So God can definitely save and rescue you and I from our addictions, from our childhood trauma, from our suicide, in miracles. Okay? He can do a miracle. But I'm not here to tell you that he can save you in a miracle. Because I'm here to tell you he can also save you in the mundane. You know how God saved me on that day in 2020? Something in my gut. That's not very sexy. It didn't need to be. It worked. He wants none of us to take the life that he created and his son died for into our own hands. You and me didn't make you and me. Truthfully, your parents didn't make you. They conceived you. They didn't create you. Your Creator wants you to live because you're still here. And you're the only one of you. I didn't say this at any other services, but Teresa suggested I share it, so I'm going to do it for this service because this is a cool service. This is where it's at. This is the party crowd. I feel it. This is the section I want to be in heaven. This one, Lord, right here. Look at these people. I want to be with these people. All humanity represents a piece in God's jigsaw puzzle. All of you and me are a piece in that jigsaw puzzle of life. And if I take my life, I remove from God's jigsaw puzzle the piece that was meant for me. And my husband can go back to the box. God, she died. She killed herself. I need another piece of Heather. I need to find another piece to put right here in this space that was meant for her. There's not. Oh, my kids can say, my mommy, she died. She killed herself. Can you just take this piece, though, and contort it to fit? Can you just kind of squeeze it in there? I need that piece there. No, it doesn't work that way. Your piece is the only piece of you and it will only ever be the only piece of you. And you don't have to be you. You get to be you. You get to be you. The Bible says that you've decided the length of our lives, Job 14:5. You and me are going to let God bring us into the world on our birthday, and we're going to live and let God take care of when he takes us out on our death day. And in the middle, it's going to be hard. Life's very hard. But with Jesus, it's not impossible. So live until the Lord takes you home. You can do it. So what have I been doing since 2019 when you guys last let me be here? Yay! I started an organization called Wonderful, and we ship free life boxes to anybody, anywhere in the world, going through anything, so they won't give up. Because I believe that one more suicide is one too many. And in the 23 months that I've been running my little non-for-profit, we have done, I think we have a slide here, of 5,600 life boxes in 23 months to 47 states and 11 countries. 11 countries. They just reach out, they go to my website, and some of the life boxes that we have shipped, a South African pastor was suicidal. We shipped him one. A young boy's mother was planning the murder of him and the suicide of herself. The authorities got her, but we sent a life box to the little boy. Military bases have requested them. Small businesses, churches, schools, halfway houses, hospitals. After the shooting in Uvalde, we went to Uvalde. Yeah. And we gave 600 grieving life boxes to those families. I think the one, people have asked me which one has impacted you the most, and I would have to say my friend Amy. During COVID, my friend Amy reached out to me and she asked for a life box for herself. Now see, Amy and I have absolutely nothing in common. Amy's Jewish, I'm Christian. Amy's a homosexual, I'm a heterosexual. Amy's addicted to meth and alcohol and pills. And I find myself being addicted to wanting to die, but we don't have the same addiction. And Amy wanted to give up, so we sent her a life box. And in the last year, it's not just that Amy's still alive. It's that my Jewish, homosexual, meth, alcohol, addicted, recovering friend is now requesting life boxes for the homeless and the addicted where she lives. You guys can stay standing. I'm going to pray for you. All right. Here's the deal. A life box, hear me, this can't save you. But it contains contents that God has used to save me. And I want to just say one thing. If you love somebody who struggles like I do, I know you're tired. It is hard to love someone who is mentally broken. People have asked my husband, how do you do it? And I think he summed it up so eloquently. Raul said, it's my job to love Heather, and it's God's job to save her. So you keep loving that person. Let God save them. I recognize there's people in here who have lost someone to suicide, and I want to pray for you. And then I want to pray for you if you're struggling. If you have lost someone to suicide, will you just grab the hand of the person next to you? And if your hand was just grabbed, I want you to hold that hand tight, because you have no idea what that grief is like. God, we don't know what that grief is like, but you know, because you're in the heart of everyone that's broken. So for the people that have lost someone to suicide, for the questions, the whys, the how comes, the I should haves, I pray you would take those broken heart pieces from them. And in place, I pray you would put back their heart in the way that you intended it to be. I pray that you would descend into their atmospheres and fill it with your love and your assurance that you see them and you hurt for them and you're there for them. And Lord, right now, I also just want to pray for anybody that's mentally struggling. I'm just going to call it out. This church is not going to have suicides and overdoses. The enemy of that, in the name of Jesus, flee from this place. Flee from the parking lot. Flee from the 50 acres that they're about to have a bountiful harvest on. Enemy, be gone in the name of Jesus. Death by suicide and overdose is not going to happen in this place. We rebuke you. We resist you. You flee from this place because this is a house of life. Here, we choose life. Here, we're gonna live, and it's hard, but we're not gonna give up because your word says, I will not die. I will live to tell what the Lord has done. And all of the people that love you in this house said,